Well, how about a 350 Legend cartridge against a woodchuck? Is it enough gun? And what about safari truth in Africa? Are they really telling you the truth about these relatively inexpensive and productive hunts in Africa? We're going to find out about that and a lot more on this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast. Hi guys, say as usual, we're going to hear from our patrons. We are really ramping up our Patreon business. It's gotten to be quite the fun club. We're getting a lot of interaction with the guys and gals who have joined us there on Patreon. We would like to recommend it for the rest of you. If you would like to support Ron Spomer Outdoors YouTube videos and blogs and all the things that we do, you could do that by joining Patreon. We have several tiers at which you can join up and contribute. And we're having some fun meetups, and those are really getting to be popular, where we all get together on a Zoom sort of a meeting and talk about all things guns and ammo and ballistics and hunting and game and you name it. It's just a lot of fun. The guys are really responding well to that. So if you get a chance, go to patreon.com, Ron Spomer Outdoors, and that'll give you the directions on how to join us, and we would just love to have you. Now, let us hear from one of our patrons, Josh. He says, "Hey, good morning, Ron. I was recently in my local gun store when a certain rifle caught my eye. It's a Montana Rifle Company rifle called the Junction. I have never heard of these rifles, and I can't find a lot of information or reviews about them. Do you have any experience with these particular rifles?" Well, Josh, I wrote him back and said, I have known Montana Rifle Company since it came out in 1999, and was started in, of all places, Montana. And what they wanted to do there, and I think they achieved it, was to build traditional controlled feed action rifles along the line of a Mauser 98, Winchester Model 70, and then good wood stocks on them. I think they've since expanded to synthetic stocks and such. But at that time, there were not a lot of options available for controlled round actions like that. And those are the ones with the big leaf spring on the outside for good positive extraction. They also pick the round up as soon as it comes popping out of the magazine when you push the bolt forward, and that claw holds it against the face of the bolt. So you have complete control of that cartridge at all times. So I just told him that company had been around for a long time. I went through, I'm not sure if it had 2 or 3 different owners, but most recently it was picked up by some folks in Michigan and actually moved. They didn't change the name to the Michigan Rifle Company. They kept it Montana, and that keeps, they could have gone with Michigan and kept the same acronym with the Montana Rifle Company. MRC would have been Michigan RC. It would have been the same letters, but
it doesn't have the same cachet. Michigan rifle.
Yeah, right. Good point. Michigan is not exactly known as a great rifle state the way Montana is. In fact, a lot of Michigan hunters have to use slug shotguns, or at least they used to. So, but I guess they are really cranking out some really good quality there at that manufacturer. So I just recommend anyone who's interested, check out those Montana rifles. They're not just some fly-by-night outfit. They're really well-made, well-designed, and got a great reputation. Now, Mike is another of our patrons. Let's see what he has to say. "Ron, I finally took the plunge, and I got a suppressor for my 7mm Remington Magnum. Like you, I'm a big fan of that rifle, and now I'm also a fan of suppressors. A few questions arose, and the internet had different opinions. Imagine that. First, I believe it changes your point of impact because you're putting weight on the end of the barrel, and this should affect the harmonics, right? Also, have you noticed grouping differences using the same cartridges? Mine gets really dirty. Does that excessive buildup of carbon affect accuracy? Some suppressors are rated for 17 HMR up to 50 calibers. Is there an advantage to just go with what you are shooting? For example, a 308 rated for the 30-06 versus one suppressor that handles everything. All my best to you and Betsy." Mike.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, Mike, good questions. Suppressors are kind of new to a lot of hunters. They're really catching on. Folks who try one discover that, just as you said, the extra weight out front or the extra mass on the barrel seems to tame things down and improve accuracy. I would say 9 times out of 10, if not 49 times out of 50, when I try a suppressor on a rifle, it starts to shoot better. Of course, it'll shoot better with certain loads than others, like any other rifle, with or without a suppressor. But it just really does affect accuracy in most cases. It also tames recoil quite remarkably well, so it pretty much does what a muzzle brake would do without doing the nasty things that brakes do, which is, of course, blow your ears out. The suppressor tames the blast, tames the recoil, and improves the accuracy. What's not to like, huh? Well, the look and the extra length are the downsides to suppressors, so let's not cover up that reality. But again, once you get used to those, I think you're just going to absolutely love them. Now, as to which size you should get, the universal ones that have obviously a big hole in the end of them to handle a 50 caliber, but then you can also shoot the smaller ones through it because the bullet is going straight through the center. It's not going to hit the sides of it or anything right there on the muzzle. So you can get by with using a bigger one for various rifles. There's a little bit of a downside to that. One of them is, of course, there is more air around the smaller bullet in the bigger hole on that suppressor, so some of the volume, sound, and air goes out. It's not as quiet. I wouldn't go more than, let's say, you have a 30 caliber and you step down to 22. I'd rather cut it off at about 25 or 26, but it does make a difference. I've used some of those on a 22, and it's really still quite quiet. But if you went with an actual 22 or maybe a 24 and then use it on your 24 calibers and your 22 calibers, that would probably be a pretty good balance. But I have found that my favorite, which is the Banish Backcountry, a lightweight, fairly short suppressor, in the 30 caliber, that one seems to work really well on my 6.5s, my 7 millimeters, my 22s, pretty much all of them. Optimized, obviously, for the 308 calibers on up to the 300 Magnums. But then if you're going to shoot a 338, you're going to need a bigger hole, so you can decide, do I want one of those, or should I just jump up to a 45, or whatever. Now, why not get one for every rifle? Well, expense is one of the big reasons, and the other is this silly tax stamp we have to buy. And that's $200. A bit of a hassle with the red tape applying for that silly thing. It's about like, actually it's worse than buying a rifle, which really sounds silly, and it is. Suppressors have never, well, unless somebody bashed somebody on the head with one, they're just a muffler for a rifle or a shotgun. So they're really not anything that needs to be managed, I think, by the federal government, like firearms. I honestly don't think they need to be either, but it is what it is. And this has been an old law that's been on the books since the 1930s, the original Firearms Act. And they are working to try to get rid of that, which I think would be a good thing, because European countries and a lot of African countries, they sell suppressors over the counter the way we sell rifle scopes or brakes. And they don't have any problems with crime or anything. It's just kind of silly. It has nothing to do with crime. So there you go. That's, I think, worth investigating. Betsy, I think, likes suppressors, right?
Oh, I love suppressors, but I think, can you go over why the suppressors were included in that act in the 1930s?
Yeah, there's varying stories on that. This was the age of Al Capone and the St. Valentine's Day massacres and all this sort of stuff. And I think that's what most people assumed was going on. They thought, well, because these violent crime mobsters and stuff were using silencers to silence their guns while they made their hits. Yeah, think about the movies. That's where it mostly comes from. That if you strictly limited that, it would help somebody say, hey, I heard a gunshot, and the police can investigate or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because the suppressor does not reduce it to nothing. It takes about 30 decibels of sound off the top. And I always say a typical hunting rifle like a 270 Winchester, you're probably kicking out 160, maybe as much as 170 decibels of sound. If you knock 30 off of that, you're down to the blast of a 243 or a 22 250 or something like that. So there's still plenty of sound out there. Nonetheless, it was put in. Others say that, no, the reason they slipped it in was just kind of a compromise. A lot of the politicians, the anti-gunners back in the 30s, wanted handguns to be banned or something. And to placate them, they said, look, we'll give you suppressors or mufflers and make those hard to come by with this tax stamp for $200 and all that stuff, which back in the 1930s, $200, that's like, what, $2,000 to $4,000 today. Huge money. Who's going to pay that kind of money? So they just figured that alone would stop the sale of suppressors. But the game wardens, I guess, were behind it because they thought if poachers were out with a suppressor on a 22 rimfire, for instance, which has always been a real popular quiet round to shoot when you're jacklighting deer at night, shooting them in the head and all, if you added a suppressor to it, it would be almost no sound and they wouldn't be able to find these guys. So one or both of those was probably at work, but at any rate, they made that compromise, kept the handguns off of this list. That would have been, said the same as, say, a Thompson submachine gun. That's put onto a special list where you have to pass through extra hoops and get a tax stamp and all sorts of things. And the suppressors got thrown in with them. So it really had very little to do with crime control. And that's why I think we really need to get rid of it. Betsy?
No, I agree.
You agree? How do you like that, guys? Betsy agrees with me.
Well, I like suppressors. I still think you need hearing protection for some calibers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point. You know, they're great for a sudden shot. If you're out hunting and you have a quick shot opportunity and you have a suppressor on, you can pretty much take that shot without your ears ringing. You still do get enough muzzle blast that you're going to do a little bit of damage. They say that anything over, what's the OSHA regulation on sound in the workplace? I think it's 80 or 85 decibels. It's not all that much, but that requires hours of it constantly to damage your hearing, whereas a sudden loud blast causes some immediate damage. And I think it's like 120-ish, somewhere in that range of a big blast will do a little bit of damage. And then the higher you go up the scale, obviously, the more. So yeah, if you put a muzzle suppressor on a 270 or 30-06 or 308 and you knock 30 off of it, you're still probably looking at 130 or so decibels of loud blast. So you do want to still protect your ears when you can. But I really like having the suppressor on for those sudden quick shots. It's not very often it happens, but now and then I will jump a big buck in close cover and I have a quick shot opportunity, or even I'll be looking for meat animals and does and stuff, and if you've got that suppressor, it makes it a lot more comfortable to take a quick shot. All right, now let's hear from Jeremiah. Jeremiah is a real active patron, and he is all excited about going to Africa with us. We're going to try to put this hunt together for next year. He's chomping at the bit. In the meantime, he's doing what he can around home to improve his shooting and his hunting and all the rest of it. So let's just see what Jeremy has to say here, or Jeremiah. I bought a 350 Legend for hunting deer on public land in Indiana, as well as for my wife to have one and to learn to shoot with. Now, the moderate range for Indiana anyway, and the softer recoil, well, I thought that would be a great fit with the 350 Legend. So I got a Mossberg Patriot with a fluted barrel and a gray laminate stock. The rifle is certainly a looker, and she shoots pretty consistently too. I had heard others say that the 350 Legend was becoming renowned for wounding and losing game. So I started doing plenty of research, some of which was from your channel, and I felt that they were the usual, this caliber is trash, or, well, I knew a guy who lost a deer once, those kinds of anecdotes that are so common in the gun world. So I felt confident in the 350 Legend that I chose. Well, last week, we had a groundhog who has been burrowing under our shed, and I've been trying to take a crack at it. It's been a very skittish little varmint, but I finally managed to get a shot at him at about 30 yards. I took aim, verified my shot placement, made sure of my target and what was behind it, and pulled the trigger. It fell over, and then immediately it got up and started looking around. I had another round chambered, and I was ready for a follow-up, but that groundhog collected himself and ran under my shed before I could get that follow-up shot. So here's the kicker. I'm still seeing him on occasion. He's moving like he was hit, and I know I hit him when I shot, but that little sucker is still walking around my backyard. Well, all of it seems like I accomplished here was to increase his awareness, and he has since been impossible to get another shot at. This is beginning to make me question the 350 Legend. The rifle is accurate, the scope is still sighted in, and the round I used was a 165 grain Hornady FTX bullet that I certainly wouldn't want to take a hit from. Yet the groundhog is still walking around. It's making me question using it on medium-sized animals like a deer if I don't even drop a groundhog. So here is my follow-up. I'm looking at a possible caliber with a 150-yard or less range that is going to fall into the straight wall cartridge regulations and have light recoil for my rifle. I am open to suggestions on calibers and rifles to fire them. Well, I tell you, Jeremiah, based on your experience with his woodchuck, you should probably get at least a 450 Bushmaster or 458 SOCOM, maybe a 4570, but the recoil is going to be pretty stiff. No, seriously, I think something weird happened with that chuck. I don't think you hit him very well, if at all. You say he's acting like he's been hit, but come on, let's think about this. You're throwing a 165 grain bullet. It's 35 caliber. You've got the same energy as you probably would get out of, say, a 35 Remington, which has a reputation for being one heck of an effective whitetail round. There's just no possible way you can center a woodchuck, even a Boone and Crockett woodchuck, with a bullet of that weight at that velocity at 30 yards and not finish him off. Consider this. At 30 yards with your scope above the bore of your rifle, you're going to have that bullet starting to rise up to your aim point. And the scope is, of course, that much higher, so your sight line is that much higher. And depending on where you had this thing zeroed, and et cetera, I'm guessing that you probably hit a little bit low. I have done this on close targets with scoped rifles. You put the scope right where you want it and forget that bullet's starting off quite a bit lower, and before it's gotten up to your line of sight, you're probably going to miss low. I'm guessing you just skimmed the bottom of it somewhere or kicked some dirt up into it, something like that, because there's no way that bullet is not going to be effective at taking out a groundhog. But I appreciate your humor. And if you do want to go up on the scale here, just jump to that 400 Legend. You know, it's from the same company. Winchester makes them both, and they're both straight walls for the same reason. You are going to get more energy out of the 400. Shoots a little bit heavier bullet, a little bit wider bullet. That one's definitely going to step it up for you. But I have seen excellent results with that 350 Legend. A friend of mine a few years ago shot a whitetail in Ohio, and this thing was a beauty. It was in a 160 class antler size, just beautiful tines and points and spread and everything. He was tickled. Biggest whitetail ever, and he shot a lot of whitetail. But he shot that with a 350 Legend, one shot kill right on the shoulder or just behind the shoulder, I forget which, no problem. And I hear many, many reports from folks that the 350 Legend as a straight wall cartridge is really, really good on whitetail. So I think you were right about reports of I knew a guy who shot one once and it didn't all work out. You know, that stuff's common as can be. You always have to take it with a whole shaker of salt. All right, let's go to some comments that have come in. I guess, Betsy's, a lot of these are from our YouTube videos and podcasts, right? So here is one from someone calling himself Big Guns 157, and it is about the Horizon Vandal rifle review. That's one that Tate and the boys did recently. That was the one that shot a one-hole group. Holy mackerel. I think it was chambered for what, 22 Creedmoor? Now let's see what Big Guns 157 has to ask. He says, what coaching did Landon give you? Oh, and then Ron Himmelreich says, no kidding, what did he say? Everybody's asking about this. So, oh, I know what that is. When they were shooting, it started off shooting about 1.5 inches to 1 inch group. And Tate was doing the shooting. And he just couldn't get it to shoot very well. And he wondered, well, maybe it's me. So I think he had Landon shoot. Also, he had Griffin shoot. And Griffin shot a pretty good group, under minute of angle. So then, maybe it was Tate, the shooter. So then Landon shot, and he shot a really tight group. I'm guessing it was maybe 1/4 inch or something. So, yeah, maybe it is Tate. And then Tate mentioned that Landon showed him a few shooting tricks, because Landon and Griffin, too, though they have been both competitors on target shooting, long-range stuff, and so they're pretty accomplished. So he mentioned that Landon showed him a few tricks, and then he shot a 3-shot group, literally put every bullet in the same hole. Oh my goodness, this was one heck of a group. Now, it might have been dumb luck, but based on the groups that the other two guys were getting, I think they'd found the right load, the rifle got broken in just right, or what exactly it was. They never determined. But people are now asking, what did Landon show you that made you shoot so much better? And I think we're going to have to revisit that one and maybe do an interview with Landon, have him show us his bench shooting techniques. I think that would be of value to everybody. So we'll do that, guys. Well, there's somebody else commenting on that same video, says, all this time of ragging on gun manufacturers, now you finally learn how to shoot. Yeah, that's a good point. If you watch many of our videos, you'll notice that sometimes we just can't get a good group. We're shooting a new rifle we're testing out, or sometimes we're comparing and contrasting rifles and we're getting 1.5-inch groups, maybe an MOA group now and then. So it's like, well, is it us or is it the rifle? And this is a valid complaint because a lot of these are brand new. Sometimes we don't even have time to clean them. We just take them out of the box the way I think a lot of hunters and shooters would and start shooting. Now, ideally, you should clean the bore before you do this stuff. And some people recently have been commented that that's absolutely essential, so that you clean the barrel of all the old fouling that's in it from the manufacturing process. There might be slivers of steel and different things, which to a degree is true, but I think what you're forgetting is that the manufacturers have already fired that rifle. And it's standard operating procedure. You've built this tool that is going to take a lot of pressure and drive a bullet out of a barrel. You want to make sure that it works properly. You don't want to have messed something up and the gun explodes and blows up on you. So they test fire it for function. They want to run some rounds through it, make sure the action's doing what it's supposed to do, the extraction is working, the bullets are coming out of the barrel without blowing it up and all the rest of it. So several rounds have already been fired through that rifle. I have yet to get a brand new rifle, take my bore scope, look down it and say, wow, nice bright shiny bore. And I'm sure there may be a handful of them out there from high-end custom gun builders. They clean it after they test it, but most of these are coming in already dirty. So I don't think it's a huge problem to be test firing those right away. And that's what we'll often do. But then it raises a question of, well, was it because the barrel was already dirty? We should have probably practiced with it ahead of time, shot it a bunch of times to figure out what load it likes. But I think what we're showing you is real world stuff. What we are experiencing is pretty much what you are going to experience with a new rifle. And I think the lesson there is to not give up on it, just with the same rifle they were using. It was a Horizon rifle out of Texas. Ended up shooting incredibly well, but if we had shot those first 2 or 3 groups and said, well, you know, it's a nice looking rifle and it functions properly, but it sure doesn't shoot very well. Not a fair assessment. So take that into account when you're watching any of our videos. How many times did we shoot it? Did we give it a fair shake? Did we try different brands of ammo, different loads and bullets and that sort of thing?
Well, we usually try different loads, and if it's not shooting at all, you go clean it. So we do go through a huge process.
Yeah,
Don't sell yourself short.
Okay, I won't sell myself short, but I just be aware that stuff happens and we don't always get everything done exactly the same way perfectly, and we're not trying to go from gun review to gun review, video to video with the exact same protocol so that you can compare all these rifles evenly. And it's really not fair to do that anyway because every rifle is different. It's its own thing. You can get 2 identical rifles right off the factory line, and one of them shoots like a house of fire, and the other one looks like it's been through a house fire. It shoots like it's been through a house fire, and there's really no explanation for it. I was visiting with Lex Webernick one time, great gun maker, Rifles Inc. He builds incredibly accurate rifles. And he said, Ron, I don't know what it is, but I will have a rifle that just shoots miserably. I've got the best barrel, and the previous rifle I built, I used that same action, same barrel, and it shot beautifully. And then all of a sudden, this thing won't shoot at all. And I try all sorts of things, and I figure, there's got to be something wrong with the barrel. And I will give it a close examination with the bore scope, and it looks perfect. And then another barrel that shoots really, really well, I'll look at it and say, my gosh, it looks like the thing's been rusting for 4 years or something. Somebody went in there with a shovel and scraped the sidewalls or something. It just doesn't make any sense. So I guess his point was that sometimes you just can't explain what is going on, why one rifle shoots and another one doesn't. So don't assume that a gun review of a particular rifle says this thing shoots sub-MOA groups. You rush right out and buy one and you're going to get sub-MOA groups, and vice versa. You just got to expect the unexpected. But definitely give it time, break it in, clean the barrels. A lot of rifles will not start shooting to their best until you've put 20 to 40 rounds down that barrel. And many of us, of course, like to clean in between every 5 shots or something. There's many opinions on how to break in a barrel and all the rest of it. So pay attention to what your manufacturer recommends and try it. But the best we can do is just give it a try. All right. Oh, those are some good questions, guys. Thanks for bringing all that up. Now, here we're going to go to a handgun video. My old buddy John Haviland up in Montana. He has been a gun writer for a couple of centuries at least. So he and I are a couple of old timers. We've been around in hunting camps and stuff together, and he is just an absolute hoot. Got a dry sense of humor, and he really knows his guns and ballistics. And in fact, he testifies in court cases about guns and ballistics and whether or not the bad guy could have done what they're claiming based on the performance of the gun. So he knows his stuff, and he brought over a couple of old handguns that he has had for a long time, and we had fun. Nothing earth-shaking in this video other than a couple of old guys shooting a Colt Woodsman and a Smith & Wesson revolver and .22 long rifle, which John has used for years to pot shoot grouse when he's out elk hunting and deer hunting for the pot. It's kind of a popular thing out west, is carry a little handgun for that. And so we shot those, and the point was not quite duplicating what he remembered doing in the older days when he was younger. He would shoot all these grouse with his beautifully accurate handgun, and now the old guys are out there going, I don't know if this is all that accurate. But it demonstrated those two classic handguns, and a lot of folks enjoyed that video. You might want to check it out yourself. I've forgotten the name of it. Two old geezers shoot two old handguns or whatever it is, but it's worth looking at. It was pretty recently put out. Ron Spomer Outdoors, our regular channel. So now we're going to hear from some folks who watch that. This is T. Collis 5736. He says, don't shoot a handgun off a rest as if it's a rifle. Support your firearms and don't let the gun contact the rest. Any interference will cause inaccuracies. I have long wondered about that. Over the years, I have shot handguns resting in various ways. I have a front rest sandbag kind of thing, and I will put the trigger guard on it, but not the barrel. Or I'll put the base of the grip on it to try to steady it. I'll put my hands on it, but not the gun. And I haven't noticed a heck of a lot of difference. I've shot some really nice groups with various resting styles. But what have you guys figured out? The handgun experts out there who really shoot a lot of handguns. Do you rest any part of that gun on a sandbag or anything else? I assume resting the barrel on it is just as bad as when you use a rifle. You don't want to rest a barrel on a hard surface like that, or even a soft one. You want to let it vibrate freely. Does the same thing apply to handguns? Write in and let us know. We'd like to get good detailed information on that kind of stuff. All right. Here's somebody else. Glock Parasta. He says, great old guns, but I think they shoot better than you guys do. Yeah, you got that right. They probably still shoot minute of grouse head, but neither John nor I shoots minute of grouse head. By the way, I used to shoot a Smith & Wesson autoloader. I forgot the number, like a 422 or something like that. That thing was really pretty accurate. I shot a number of rough grouse and blue grouse, which is legal in Idaho, out in the elk woods for camp supper, and it was just pretty consistently accurate. I've forgotten the 22 load that I used in it. But one day I had a bad load from some company making a new 22 high velocity thing I should have never messed with. And I blew the extractor off the darn thing, and I cannot find an extractor to fit that thing to get it shooting again. Need to get that done. But okay, now we're going to go to Africa here. Somebody was commenting about a video we did. We interviewed an African PH and just said, what is the truth about hunting over here? Is it everything it's cracked up to be? And what do we do right? What do we do wrong? Are people being snowed a little bit when they are being told what to expect and all the rest of it? So it was a pretty informative interview with this guy. And Blaine Ney writes in after viewing it and says, in a civilized and cultivated country, wild animals only continue to exist at all when they're preserved by sportsmen. The excellent people who protest against all hunting and consider sportsmen as enemies of wildlife are ignorant of the fact that in reality, the genuine sportsman is by all odds the most important factor in keeping the larger and more valuable wild creatures from total extermination. Theodore Roosevelt. That was a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, one of our first conservation presidents. And that gentleman did a lot for conservation and game management and all the rest of it. So that's what Blaine was sending that in after listening to our talk about hunting and how in Africa, sport hunting has really saved wildlife and increased its numbers many, many times over. Now we've got another, I think this is from the same video. This gentleman is calling himself Open Debate. Hey, great video, Ron. Few tips for your viewers that are not covered in your video from a native South African. Number one, if you are sensitive to plant pollen and allergies, avoid the months of September, October, November in Africa because the grass and flower allergies are very bad. Number two, remember to tip your hunting foreman, the leader of the team that are loading your animals, tracking, etc., and your pH. In local currency, make sure that you exchange some U.S. dollars at the airport for local currency because they will really appreciate that. And then number three, muzzle brakes are a no-no, especially because your pHs and your helpers will be close by when hunting, and many might be too polite to tell you not to use a muzzle brake, but take it from a native. We love nature, and nature sounds, but not the noise of a muzzle brake. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And number four, most important, Africans are highly ethical hunters. Of course, you'll find the rogue one here and there. For those, we have a special 6-foot deep hole we dig if we find them. So never ask a PH or anyone if it's okay to snipe at animals from hundreds and hundreds of yards away. It will not be accepted well, and you will not be invited back. Stalking and getting as close as possible with safety in mind is the focus and should be your priority. Africa welcomes everyone, and we are the most friendly people you'll find anywhere in the world. But we are principled, straightforward, no-nonsense people, and many of us, like Werner, that's who was the PH in the interview, Werner von Seidlitz, live among our animals, and although they get hunted responsibly, they are part of who we are as Africans. And yes, you are right on the history too, Ron. My great ancestors, the Dutch, were the first settlers in Africa in 1652, similar to America about that same time. And like my great ancestors, settled with cattle in Africa. So did the Dutch in New York. Hard to believe if you look at New York today. Lots of laughs. Great video, Ron. Keep up the great work. So yeah, thank you for that. That was some good perspective on life in Africa and hunting in Africa and game populations and all the rest of it from an African.
I have something to say. We're going back with Werner, back to Namibia, and we found him to be a great PH and always enjoyed our trips. So anybody going to Africa, check out Werner.
Yeah, Werner von Seidlitz of Immenhof Safaris. Just Google it and you'll find him. He and his whole family are just wonderful Namibians that really know how to show you hospitality. Not over the top fancy. It's more of a farm family, and you're right there on the farm with them. They got some nice, clean and pleasant rooms, but it's not one of these 5-star lodges. They're a little bit uncomfortable for some of us. And they just concentrate on showing you a good time, taking care of you, and getting you into a lot of Great Plains game on their ranch and many others in the area in which wildlife is being carefully managed and restored and protected from poaching. And despite the tall fences that these guys put up to keep the poachers out and the wildlife in, they still get some poaching problems. Last time we were over there, someone had cut the fence and sneaked in and poached something, so they're constantly having to battle that. And of course, a lot of the fees that we pay to hunt there are used to pay for the anti-poaching patrols. They are constantly on the lookout. All right, good point, Betsy. Now, Squared Photography has something to say. Pretty simple. It says, I do not understand why this channel doesn't have millions of followers. Because of Betsy, of course. So I know who put this one in. Well, we appreciate that, Squared Photography, and I know Betsy appreciates it. She is the reason that we have 500,000 plus subscribers. But we'll take the millions.
No, on the main channel.
That's the main channel.
Right.
Yeah.
And over 100,000 on the podcast. So everybody like and subscribe.
All right, Betsy's report. Gentlemen, ladies, like and subscribe to Ron Spomer Outdoors podcast, and then go over to Ron Spomer's YouTube channel, Ron Spomer Outdoors, like and subscribe to that one. And then join us on Patreon too.
Yeah, I always get a kick when I'm talking to my younger friends and I go like and subscribe, and they think, what is she talking about?
Yeah. All right. Hey, here is somebody responding to a video we did with Phil Shoemaker. This one has got a lot of views. People love this one because Phil is not lifelong, but after he got out of the Vietnam War, he was looking for some respite, and he moved up to Alaska, he and his wife, and they built a cabin. They were going to live off the land and escape the madness of humanity, and they managed to do it pretty well. They raised 2 kids up there in this cabin. The only way you can get to it is with a long, long walk or flying a small plane, which, of course, is what Phil did. But he guided hunters for all sorts of things. He's a master guide and one of the most highly respected bear guides up there. He really knows his stuff. And we did a video just talking with him about this famous incident in which he protected a couple of his fishing clients who had been attacked by a bear. He was leading them to the little stream very close to the main house. He knew all the bears there personally. Those guys, they see these bears often enough and understand them and read their body language, and they can tell one bear from another by its size or a certain mark on it and whatever. And he had never had any trouble with these brown bears. They're fishing, they're fat and happy, they don't give you much grief, but this day they did. And he figures it was a medium-aged boar that had gotten into a battle with another one and was all fired up. A lot of testosterone flowing, and this bear was angry. So he and the anglers come walking down there to get to the river's edge to fish in the willows and the alders, I assume. And this bear charges them, flat out runs right over. And the couple who were fishing were up many times with Phil, and they knew what to do, which was fall to the ground, cover themselves up. So they're lying on the ground in some pretty tall grass. The bear runs up to where they had been a few seconds before and stops right over the top of them and looking around to find them to do his damage. And here's your guide, Phil, standing right there about 12 feet away, if I remember. And he's got to defend these people from a bear that could kill them with one swipe of his paw or one bite to the back of the neck or anything. It's like you don't have a lot of time to think. You just have to react. Imagine doing this. You see this monster of a bear come out of the bushes from, 20 yards away. They can cover that distance in a second or so. And he's got to now decide what to do to save his clients. He pulls out his handgun. It's a 9mm Luger. Normally he carries a 44 or something bigger, but like many of us, he gets tired of lugging around the extra weight, and he had been doing some experimenting with some hard cast bullets in that 9mm. Heavy 147 grain hard cast bullets, and he found that they penetrated as well as the big bullets in the 44, just not as big a hole. And he knows from long experience you do not kill a bear by blunt force from a handgun or even a long gun. They just do not have enough energy to do that. You've got to hit them in the right place. And for an instant demise, you'd better have a spine shot or a brain shot. If you do a heart or lung shot, you're going to have to wait for the animal to bleed out. Well, the bear runs up, stands right there, and Phil's got to now decide what to do with his 9mm. And I don't know if he was not convinced that it would penetrate the brain or not, or if he couldn't make that shot, but he knew the big target area of the vital zone was right behind the shoulder. So that's what he went for. And he would pop that bear right behind the shoulder. And the bear would look around like, what poked me? And then when he straightened out again, he popped him another time. He put 4 shots, four shots right behind his shoulder into that heart-lung region. And the bear then ran a ways and fell over. So success. Nobody was hurt. And, of course, people will complain about one aspect of this or the other, say, what, he's an idiot to have this gun and everything else. That's the setup for this one. Now we're going to read what this gentleman had to say. So it's Boo Rag is what he's calling himself or herself, and says this. He, meaning Phil, was bear protecting his people with, capital with, a 9mm with ammo he had just received when he could have had his 44 mag with him, exclamation point. And he had to think for a moment, do I have to shoot this bear that was standing on top of them? and then he had to play shoot with it and wait until the bear would give him a shot he thought he might penetrate. And then he's happy that a now wounded bear has left. He had better have a lot better stories than this for his memoirs. Okay, this is one of these examples of somebody popping off with limited information or understanding of the situation. Yeah, I didn't take any of this from the interview I did with Phil on this show. You might want to watch that one, see what you think of it. I think under the conditions, Phil acted with incredible reserve and intelligence, and he was not overly excited. He was calm, and he did what he had to do. Why did he stop for a moment to think, do I have to shoot this bear? Because you get in big trouble for shooting bears. You're going to be investigated one side and down the other. I've had one master guide in Alaska tell me that if you don't have a bite or claw mark on you and you shoot a bear, you're going to be in big trouble. You've got to prove that your life was in danger. So that's why he, for a split second, thought, do I have to shoot this bear, or will it run off and not hurt anybody? And he made the right decision. I'm sure the two people lying on the ground who are not injured felt like he made the right decision as well. And so this whole complaint stuff from Boo Rag, I just can't abide that kind of thing. I'm sorry. Okay, I think Phil's going to have a lot better memoirs to publish than this guy. Regarding a short that we did on camo comes something from a guy called Anonymous. A lot of those out there. He says, in 40 years of hunting, I have never, not once, worn camo. Personally, I think it's silly. It's also crazy expensive. But dull earth tones and a good stalking is all you need. Not once has it entered my mind that, that animal spooked because I didn't have camo. Oh, and by the way, I bow hunt only. So there you go, guys. If you want an opinion about camouflage, it'll save you some money. I have often held that, much as I enjoyed camo back in the day when it came out, I have never found that it is essential. I've had animals walk right up to me, deer, elk, all the colorblind critters. If I'm standing still with blaze orange on, I've called coyotes in close range. I've had literally an elk come up and sniff my boot tip before it was alerted to what I was, and I'm sitting there with blaze orange on. Done most of my hunting with blaze orange with a rifle, and I've taken a lot of game at bow ranges with my rifle. So yeah, you can still wear camouflage. I think as a bow hunter I would, just because most hunting gear is made with camouflage patterns these days, and it certainly can't hurt. I don't know that it's really going to help, but I'm guessing there's some folks out there who insist that camo really makes a difference. If you're one of them and you care to rebut this, write in and let us know. How has camouflage made it possible for you to get your game when you think otherwise you would not have? Love to hear about it. All right, now, James 740, old episode talking about hearing loss. Oh, that's what this is about. He says, I'm glad you put that in there, Betsy. Old episode talking about hearing loss, because I wouldn't have known what he was talking about. Helios are terrible on your hearing. God bless her. So this is about an incident Betsy related about losing hearing from helicopter. She was a life flight nurse on a helicopter for 25 years. And the noise in a helicopter, you can imagine what that does to your hearing. Now, honey, did you start with hearing protection on those rides and always wear it?
We had helmets and hearing protection. We had to have hearing tests every year. And I saw the slow decline of my hearing.
Even with the protection?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the volume in there must be really, really high.
Well, every once in a while you take off your helmet or
work on a patient or something to get out of the way.
So the whole thing is that hearing protection is essential, and plus with shooting, it has really affected my hearing.
Yeah.
Particularly that one shot in Africa.
Yeah, that one shot where she thought you had a suppressor on it wasn't.
No, I thought I had hearing protection, and it wasn't.
Yeah, so that's what James here is talking about. So thank you for that, James. Thanks for reminding us and everyone else out there. I really like to look out for you folks, and a lot of us, this is the way I was when I was growing up, was like, I'm a macho man, I don't need any hearing protection, until I really started to suffer, ringing in the ears, and started to notice that I was getting a hearing loss fairly young, and I'd already had it. I think probably with me, a lot of it is maybe just genetic, but boy, I can sure tell when there's a muzzle blast that gets my ears to ringing, I am not going to hear well for a while, and when you add it up, You go to the audiologist and he says, from megahertz 3000, which is getting to be fairly high pitched, and higher, your ability to hear has dropped or declined over the years by 80%.
And that's my voice that you can't hear.
What? Did you hear that? Anybody? Thought I heard a mouse. Right. Here's another one from Squared Photography. I do not. Oh, no, I already read that one. Well, then we're going to have to go to the computerized. The big surprises. Hey, on the surprise questions as such that Betsy's given me here, we're going to hear from Don in Lander, Wyoming. Yeah, that's good country. Lander, Wyoming. I think that's where Maven Scopes are. Yeah, Maven Scopes in Lander, Wyoming. That's some good wild country there. Don says, Ron, you asked me when I get my rifle that I told you about, I should tell you how it groups. Well, I have the Weatherby Mark V in 7mm backcountry. The rifle does not like the 175 grain fusions, but it does like the 170 grain terminal ascents. I got a 1/2 inch 3-shot group. The 168 grain Barnes was 1 inch 3-shot group, and this was at 100 yards. Sorry for the delay. Have a great year, Don. Good news, Don. Don't you just love it when you get a new rifle that performs for you? And I wouldn't complain with a 1 inch group. I don't know what you got with those 175 grain fusions, but that terminal ascent bullet from Federal, that 170 grain, that should do everything for you. So congratulations. That, of course, folks, is factory ammunition. I've got one in my hands right now. That's that silver cartridge. It's steel. And it's the latest and greatest for getting your pressures way up there. Normally, top-end pressures on a lot of the rifle rounds we shoot is 65,000 PSI. That was established in 1925 by the 270, which, by the way, is 100 years old this year. And it was
we're going to do 270 week in about a month.
Oh, yeah, we've got a bunch of videos we've been filming on the 270 and some real fun surprises with one of them. We were getting some incredible velocities out of it.
And we were using the Maven Scopes from Lander, Wyoming.
Yeah, everything was working out great. We're having a lot of fun. We still have 2 or 3 to film before we start launching them all. Are we going to turn those all out one at a time in the same week, honey?
Yes, it's called 270
Every day,
week.
there's another one up, pop. That's going to be fun. At any rate, the brass on this one is not brass, it's steel, so they can go above that 65,000 PSI pressure all the way up to 80,000 without damaging the guns that they tested it in. And so it obviously is safe and it works. So I don't think a major company like Federal would be putting it on the market. So guys are getting interested in it. Like, okay, now I can have a shorter barrel and get increased velocity because I've got higher pressures and all. But you still have, well, they say you can reload it maybe 2 to 3 times. It's not as versatile as the brass case, but if you're just buying factory ammunition and you're going hunting, why not? They make some great loads for it, and that's what this gentleman, Don, was testing. And that 170 grain terminal ascent out of a 7mm, that's going to be an elk round, a moose round, a bear round, you name it. That thing's going to do the job. So now, Don, the next thing you need to write me about is the elk you've taken or whatever you take with it. I want to know how the performance is on that. So thanks for sending that in. How about Alabama, where we hear from Dwight? Ron, please give me your opinion on the following. I have a custom 270 WSM, purchased it about 15 years ago. I have used it on western hunts since acquiring it, and I've taken elk, mule deer, and aoudad sheep. For whitetail hunting here in my home state, I have been using the 7mm 08 of late and been very pleased with its performance. Unfortunately, age and arthritis have caught up with me, and I can't handle the recoil of the Magnum as well as I used to. So I'm considering adding a muzzle brake to the WSM. Because I don't like the increased noise level that comes with the brake, I'm also considering getting rid of the rifle and using the 708 on western hunts, with proper bullet selection, of course. And I'm limiting my shot distance somewhat, which I generally do anyway, so your opinion would be much appreciated. Well, Dwight, either one's going to work from you, but I don't think you're going to like that brake. I hate brakes myself. Most people do because of the pain in your ears and the noise and your hearing loss that we talked about earlier. Consider a suppressor. I think you could stick with that 270 WSM with the suppressor. It's going to recoil more like maybe a 25-06 or something. The other thing you can do is just lighten the bullets that you're shooting. Some really good high-quality bullets in the 125 grain range, 130 grain, can do just as good a job on elk. And there's just a couple ways you can tame things down there, but I would really look at a suppressor. If you go, I don't know who all else does this, but I do know that Silencer Central offers to turn your barrel, thread the muzzle, and put on a suppressor for you. You buy the suppressor, you get the tax stamp and all that, send it in your rifle, and they will turn that down for you to put the suppressor on, and you're golden. So something you might want to consider. I would really recommend that. Now in Nevada, we have Greg. Hello, Ron. In response to your question in the latest YouTube podcast, yes, I do enjoy having Tate on the show. There you go, Tate. Somebody likes you. He is very entertaining, and he is a nice addition to you and your Betsy in your content. Well, I appreciate that. We feel the same way about Tate. He is really progressing nicely. When he started, like you can imagine, he's a little bit nervous perhaps, and getting much better now, though. He's got his confidence going, and he knows his stuff. He's been a hunting guide for a long, long time, and of course hunts for himself, and he loves to play around with all these rifles. And in fact, he comes over and he wants to see what I've got next, because he doesn't have nearly the content for working with that I do, but boy, he learns fast, and he already knows a lot about the guns that he's worked with. So we're tickled to have him on the show. He's going to be doing a lot more stuff for us, and his last video was just top of the heap, an excellent video.
Well, except that he didn't tell everybody what Landon told him.
He may have done that on purpose so that people come back to find out the answer. We're going to work with that and make another video where Landon tells us all of his hunting, shooting secrets. All right, now let's continue with Greg. A quick question, if you don't mind. Where do you get your flannel shirts? They are my go-to fall and winter shirt. Now, learning about a good shirt maker is always welcome. Best regards, Greg. Okay, Greg. Betsy, do you care to load it?
Costco. Hit it early in the
Costco.
hit it early in the fall. We really like the Orvis that they sometimes have, and we go for colors, but Costco. So
Yep.
Or any shirt manufacturer wants to sponsor us, we'll be glad to wear their shirts.
Oh, now you're talking. Yeah, shirt manufacturers. People love what I wear on these shows, and they want to know where they can buy it. All you have to do is throw a whole bunch of money at us. We'll wear your shirts and tell everybody about them. Great sales pitch. I hope I get a commission on that one. Well, that is the end of the questions that Betsy has laid on me, and the end of the ones that I have found. I really want to thank you guys for continuing to weigh in on all this stuff. Now, Betsy, you need to go into Ron Spomer Outdoors website and get all the comments that have come in there. You told me the other day that there were thousands of them on there.
Well, they go to a spreadsheet that I take them from. We
Okay.
have lots of them.
Yeah, we can't answer all those.
We try to, but
No, there's no possible way we can do thousands of them.
you stay up. You don't have to go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Now, here's what you need to do, guys. Join us on Patreon, and I will answer your questions there. If you're at I forgot what level it is, second or third level, I will answer your questions when you answer right away. Those are the ones I'm reading at the start of the show. And it makes it a lot easier on me because fewer folks are on Patreon, so there's not as many questions. But we will go back and forth as well. I'll answer a question, they'll come back at me with another question, and I'll answer that one. We'll get them all handled. So if you are a new shooter, especially, or a new hunter, and you've got a lot of questions, that's a great way. Jump on Patreon, become a patron, and then you and I are going to be interacting one-on-one and getting a lot of information to you. The other thing, of course, is to watch all of our videos. We cover most of this stuff again and again in both the video channel and this podcast channel. Of course, that takes a lot more time, but I think it's worth it because you're learning new things even if you didn't think to ask. And that's how I learned all about hunting and shooting in the outdoors, not through the videos, obviously, given my age, my youthful appearance. I had to read this stuff. So I read the hunting magazines religiously. They would come in and I would gobble them up in a day, read everything in them, including the advertisements. And that's how I began to learn about how you hunt and guns and ammo and all the rest of it. So I recommend that most of you do that as well. Go to some of the old books in the library and stuff, or even some of the new books that detail this. The nice thing about reading it instead of watching the video is you have time to stop and think about what you're reading and go into more detail and ponder it for a while before it's gone. So either way, the videos are that. The information is information, but do seek out more of it. I think you will become a much, much better hunter and shooter. Betsy?
Continue to write the comments on our website. We will try to get to as many as we can on our podcast.
Yeah, we are doing 2 podcasts a week now. Trying to. So one of them will be just the questions coming off of the website, ronspomeroutdoors.com. And on that top bar, there's something like questions or comments or something like that. Click on that, and there'll be a form for you to fill out and say, hey, Ron, how come you're always stumbling on your words when you're talking to us? And your grammar sucks. Something that'll get a rise out of me. All right, I think that's it for now, guys. Thanks again for listening. It's kind of the summer doldrums right now. The heat's building up, and it's my least favorite time of year. But the good news on that is that we're probably only about 8 weeks or so away from fall and the hunting seasons, and that's what it's all about. So keep the faith, hunt honest, and shoot straight as soon as you get another opportunity.